Hi, I'm Daniel Andrews, owner and creator of Andrewsfootball.com. Welcome to my breakdown of the Indianapolis Colts. If you're new to my channel, there's this button right here. See it? See it? Bam! Hit that button. Become one of the greatest people on planet Earth. My channel is scientifically proven to make all your wildest dreams come true. So here's how my breakdown videos work. I break down what I like. Then I break down what I don't like, but stick around to the very end where I break down the Vegas over-under and if you should put action down on the Indianapolis Colts. And first and foremost, what do I like most about the Colts? This should be obvious, but it's Andrew Luck. I've often said this, that if Andrew Luck doesn't win multiple MVPs with the Indianapolis Colts, the Colts organization failed him. Now, I've never met Andrew Luck. I've never been in a locker with Andrew Luck, but I've heard this almost universally from almost everybody, coaches, even opposing players. He's the type of guy you want your daughter to date. I mean, he's almost kind of a nerdy guy, but if you were to build a quarterback, I mean, it's Andrew Luck. I mean, super smart guy, went to Stanford, really bright guy, but 6'4", 235, 240. I think at the combine he ran a 4.62. It was kind of overlooked because he came out with Robert Griffin, who ran like a 4 flat. No, I'm joking. I think Griffin ran a 4.38, but bottom line, compared to Robert Griffin, you're not that athletic, but you were 30 pounds heavier. A 4.62 for a quarterback is pretty solid. He's pretty effective when scrambling, but I wouldn't call him a runner, not like, Cam Newton or Josh Allen, but really athletic. Arm talent's very elite. I would say, I mean, he's top quarter of the NFL as far as arm talent, but when you combine that with his intelligence, and everybody universally just really likes the guy. So, very high on Andrew Luck. As a matter of fact, I saw somebody tweet out, maybe I should have took a picture of it, saved it, but he said that this year, Andrew Luck's more likely to win NFL MVP than Patrick Mahomes. Actually, I agree with that. And keep in mind, I'm a Chiefs fan, so don't hate me, Chiefs fans, but Andrew Luck, matter of fact, his numbers last year weren't bad. I mean, 4,406, I'm sorry, looking at the wrong thing here. 4,593 yards, 39 touchdowns. I've seen worse numbers win MVP. So he had a great year last year, not as good as Patrick Mahomes. But is it possible for him to have 5,000 this year? Absolutely it is. So a second thing I like is the 2018 draft class. I mean, this is a draft class that some Colts fans call this the greatest draft class of all time. Look up the 74 Steelers draft class, all right? You had 4 Hall of Famers, all right? You're not there yet. But since Chris Ballard took over as GM, former number 2 guy here in Kansas City, his draft classes have been great. In 2017, he had Malik Hooker and Quincy Wilson. Malik Hooker, I think, is going to have a huge year this year. A guy I was very, very high on coming out of Ohio State. You also had Marlon Mack in the 4th round. Anthony Walker, who's your 7th round pick, had 105 tackles. That's not bad. And then I also liked his draft this year. Now, keep in mind, I'm going to go into a little more detail a little later, but you're switching defenses. So you had 10 picks in the draft. A lot of them are on the defensive side because you're kind of reshaping that front 7. I'm going to touch base in a little bit. Keep in mind, because you're switching defenses, you went from 30th in points in 2017 to 10th in 2018, so excellent job. And that goes in line with what I'm going to talk about next as far as what I like, is that Frank Reich, he wasn't even option 1. The job was going to go to Josh McDaniels, so Chris Ballard went to option B, maybe the better option. And keep in mind, they started 1-5, and then they turned around and finished 9-1 to go 10-6, winning a playoff game, which is fantastic. New defensive coordinator Matt Eberflus. Hopefully, I'm pronouncing that right. This is the guy who was with Dallas. Dallas, if you know anything about Dallas, I'm doing them next. I'm doing them Friday. They run a Tampa 2 defense, and I could talk for hours about the Tampa 2 defense, but Chuck Pagano ran your 3-4 defense. So if you know anything else, is that the 2 front 7s are different. See, what they're trying to do is they're trying to switch defenses to a faster, smaller defense, trying to get more sacks, more turnovers, and I didn't watch enough Colts film to realize how much of the scheme has changed, but I do know that they kind of changed it around a little bit. So credit to the Colts coaching staff and credit to Chris Ballard. Last thing I like is that they signed one of my favorite Chiefs players of all time, and that's Justin Houston. Now, he's going to play defensive end instead of standard outside linebacker, but the Chiefs ran a lot of nickel, which basically he played a lot on the defensive line. He's an excellent defender against the run, which is really underrated, but he's also going to be your best defensive lineman and an excellent addition to your pass rush. Also, don't sleep on Spencer Ware. This is a guy who's had a lot of injury issues. You got him on a one-year deal really cheap. He's a completely different type of back than Marlon Mack's, more powerful, compact player, but really athletic, and if he's able to stay healthy, this is going to be a good fit for your team because he's a bigger guy who can take some wear and tear off, because you really don't want Marlon Mack to have 350, 400 touches unless you have him on your fantasy team. But it'd be a lot better to keep him fresh for the playoffs. So just kind of recap of what I like about the Indianapolis Colts. Number one, Andrew Luck. I mean, this is a legitimate MVP candidate. I'd have to say maybe one of the 5 best quarterbacks in football. There's not too many, and I'm a Chiefs fan, so obviously I'd take Mahomes, but if I had to build a franchise around a quarterback, and it wasn't Patrick Mahomes, it'd probably be Andrew Luck. I think that highly of him. I would not be surprised if he won MVP this year. He should win multiple MVPs. Excellent drafting by Chris Ballard over the last couple of years. I love this year's draft, last year's draft. I mean, 2 first-team All-Pros, and then you also get Braden Smith, who's your starting right tackle. Good move. And then this year's draft, I really like what they did in this year's draft. I'm not going to break it down too much, but bottom line, when you're switching defenses, they got a bunch of new players for that new 4-3. Currently, I don't see anybody on this draft who's going to start. I mean, I know Rock Ya-Sin, people are really high on him. He may start day one, but you got a lot of depth and a lot of players. And you've had success. You know, like I said, 7th-round pick Anthony Walker had 105 tackles last year. So you've had some success in the later rounds. A lot of these players are going to not only make the team, but impact the Colts this year. So they've done a good job in the draft the last 2 years. I think this draft was also really good. But, hey, you got to wait to see how these guys pan out. And then, Frank Wright, excellent job coaching. Matt Eberfluss, great job in switching defenses. I hope I'm getting your name right. And then, of course, picking up Justin Houston. You had 38 sacks last year, so getting a guy who's really good at rushing the passer and stopping the run, I thought was a great job. So let's talk about what I don't like, and I just hit it. I just nailed it. You had 38 sacks last year, and when I started looking into the numbers, I was a little surprised the defense was as good as I thought as they were. They were number 10 in the league as points per against. So I mean, you're 10th in the league in scoring. That's pretty damn good, and I didn't really think it would be. But when you look at the passing defense in a little more detail, they allowed 70.8% completion. All right, I mean you have opponents completing almost 71% against you. That's way too high, and you're not getting enough pressure on them. I already hit base on that. All right, you had 38 sacks last year. That's not nearly good enough, considering that you're a team that's looking to make the next step. You won a playoff game last year, so you're either trying to get to AFC Championship or even a Super Bowl. You're not going to do that when you have opponents completing 71% against you and you're only getting 38 sacks. You also only had 15 interceptions. Quarterback rating against you is 93.5. So if you're an opposing quarterback, you know that, hey, I'm going to have a good game against these guys, and there's probably not going to be a lot of pressure. Hopefully that changed with Justin Houston. Next thing I don't like is that when I was breaking down the numbers in a little more detail, I was a little surprised at how easy it was. When teams played against the Colts, I thought I had it right here. Okay, I did. Bottom line, when they started winning, they went on that 9-1 streak. Their first 2 opponents, they ran for over 200 yards in both those games. Now, both those teams ran for over 100 yards against them. All right? But then the next 8 games, only 2 opponents had over 100 yards rushing, and it was 113 and 111, respectfully. So, I mean, 113 and 112. So, I mean, it wasn't big. But basically, out of those next 8 games, only 2 opponents had over 100 yards rushing. So, here's the thing. There's no secret because if you run the ball against the Colts, you're going to win because you already know you can pass against them. So there's no real secret. Now, here's the thing. You did bring Justin Houston in, but the rest of your defensive line's kind of in flux. If you go to our lads and ESPN, there's a different alignment for your defense. I don't think it's really settled yet. Keep in mind when you're switching from a 3-4 to a 4-3, you're still kind of going in flux. You don't have it really ironed out yet. That's going to be key because if you run against the Colts, you're going to win. And here's the thing, maybe you kept them off guard last year because you weren't really sure what the new defensive coordinator was going to do. You got tape now, you know what they're going to do. And the AFC South is built to run the football, okay? All three of these teams that they're playing against are built to run the football, okay? Last thing I don't like is how they lost against the Chiefs in the playoffs. I was at the game, and I loved it because the Chiefs just came in, popped them right in the mouth. And the Chiefs are not a physical team. They're not a smash-mouth team. But they came in, and they ran for, 180 yards? And the Chiefs aren't even a running team, but they just ran right over them. The Colts really looked soft. Don't get me wrong, as a Chiefs fan, I loved it. And I watched them play against Houston, and they held Houston 7 points. And I'm thinking, man, it's going to be a tough game. But almost immediately, you could tell. Now, part of it was me, and I kind of intimidated the Colts with me being as loud as I am, being as intimidating as I am. Part of that was me. No. Hey, look, Arrowhead home field advantage is an intimidating place. I understand your season was not a failure, but if I'm a Colts fan and I watch that game, I have to be disappointed with the team because overall they looked soft. They didn't look like they were ready to play, and they didn't look like they wanted anything to do with the Kansas City Chiefs, which the Chiefs aren't a running team and they aren't a defensive juggernaut, but they acted like they were in that game. Patrick Mahomes didn't even have a touchdown pass. All right, and they won the game easily. So just kind of recap here. The Colts passing defense is not good. If you're an opposing quarterback, you know you're going to have a good game. There's no secret how to beat the Colts. You run the ball against them, you're going to win. And last game of the season, I know I was there. They looked really soft. And that's something that I kind of worry about going into this season because you're playing against AFC South. You're playing against Derrick Henry, Leonard Fournette. These are big physical running backs, and the Houston Texans, they got Dante Foreman, who's going to be the backup, to Lamar Miller. They drafted 2 linemen. Looks like they're going to be more of a smash-mouth team. So Colts, buckle up. All right, you want a faster, smaller defense. Well, you're kind of in the wrong division for that, but hey. Yeah, you did pretty good last year, and I like the team. Overall, there's a lot more to like about the Colts than there is not to like. And things I don't like, are kind of ticky-tacky, but bottom line, you can throw against them, and if you do run against them, you're going to beat them. There's no secret how to beat the Colts. So if you stuck around for the advanced part of the class, I'm going to talk about the over-under. The number started off at 9.5, jumped up to 10. However, action's really heavy on the under. Currently, the over on the Colts is plus 130. So you make a $100 wager, you win 130. But if you want to bet under 10, it's negative 150. So you have to wager $150 to win 100. So that means it could drop down back to 9.5. But here's one thing I really want to point out is that the schedule makers did not like the Colts this year. This schedule is brutal. And normally I would put this in something I don't like, but bottom line, I think the Colts are a really good team. So I'm, not calling them saying they have a bad schedule. It may not be a bad schedule because they're a really good team. But here's the thing. Early on, first game of the season at Los Angeles, you're playing the Chargers. At Tennessee, a divisional opponent, and then you're after 2 home games against Atlanta and Oakland, you're at Kansas City. So you have 3 tough road games against 2 playoff teams, and Tennessee, that's going to be a tough game, even though you should win. Well, maybe you shouldn't win that one. You could split it. You swept them last year. You had to bye in week 6. which is I don't like early buys personally. You really kind of want them either towards the middle or the end. Week 6 is really early. And then you finish the season, your last 4 games, 3 of them are on the road, including one at New Orleans on Monday night. So the schedule makers did not do you a favor. Now, keep in mind, one of the staples I have when breaking down a team is that when you jump up in wins, you usually come back down. But here's the thing, the last 2 seasons, okay, let me break down. They were 10-6 last year, 4-12 the year before, and then 8-8, 8-8. Now, in the first 8-8 season, Andrew Luck missed half the season. Then they went 8-8 with Pagano. Pagano's a defensive-minded coach, not an offensive-minded coach like Frank Reich is. Pagano's an excellent defensive coordinator. Frank Reich's an excellent offensive coordinator. So I think Reich's a better fit for this team with a superstar quarterback like Andrew Luck. So even though you went from 4 wins to 10 wins, I'm throwing that rule kind of out the door there, because you have Pagano, who's a good defensive coach, trying to coach without Andrew Luck. So I'm not really counting that rule I have where you go up and down. So I think 10 wins is pretty fair. The question is, do I think they're as good as they were last year? And I actually think they're better. I'm just not sure that they're going to beat Houston for the division. So even though they are the divisional favorites, I'm not 100% sure I like the Colts to win the division. However, plus 130 for 10, that's a good number. I mean, risking $100 to win 130 to do better than they did last year. Keep in mind, 10's a push, but I think they're better than they were last year. The talent's better. Andrew Luck, remember, he's coming off an injury, so they wasn't even sure if he was going to be 100%. Well, he played he put up MVP caliber numbers. Of course, he wasn't as good as Mahomes, but he had a good season. So I do like the over on this one. But keep in mind, this could be a better team than they were last year and finish 10-6 or 9-7. So I don't love it. I like over 10. So, hey, listen, if you're a subscriber to Andrew's Football, you already know you're one of the greatest people on planet Earth. All your wildest dreams are going to come true. But, hey, listen, if you're new to this channel, I got some great playlists right here. Take a look here. And, by the way, look down here. See it? See it? Bam! Hit that button. Become one of the greatest people on planet Earth. I'm really excited. Friday, I'm breaking down the Dallas Cowboys. So, hey, have a great day. Have a great rest of the week. And I'll see you Friday.